Hello friends, today we are going to discuss report writing. This lecture is a part of your paper Communication Research. In this lesson, you will learn about the importance of report writing in research. A report can be defined as a document organized in a systematic manner that identifies certain issue, incidents, event or any other problem, analysis and presents it. The underlying ideas behind writing report is to disseminate information to the audiences in such a way that it is easily understood by them, and this is a fundamental responsibility of the report writer. Writing reports is wider in scope. Professionals from different backgrounds write reports in their own ways and as per their objectives. Writing is an art and a scholarly task aimed at influencing the behavior of the audiences. Most of the times, written information is shared to make the audience believe that the interpretation of the information collected are accurate. The ultimate end to writing a report lies in presenting the facts to the audiences. Not only this, the audiences have to be informed about how the facts are collected. The report must, in general, clearly specify three main parts: the background of the issue, the focus of the report, the collected information, means source of information and methods of collection, and third one is the outcome, means findings or the final report. In media and communications, the journalists act same as historian. Journalists seek to unfold what is hidden and ensure that this truth will reach to the maximum audiences without any bias or regardless of how the statecraft would want the facts to reach audiences. But the truth as clean as it was collected. Now the question is, what needs to be in the report that has to be disseminated to the audiences? This involves, as mentioned earlier, the objective of report writing, which could be to enlighten about the progress of an organization or an institution, to convince about enactment of certain laws in legal terms, or to submit recommendations such as TRI recommendations on cross-media ownership. Reports with these objectives can have predetermined audiences. However, there can be reports involving a mass of undefined audiences, such as the public informed through news reports. Reports are generally written to arrive at certain conclusion, which invites further course of action. Therefore, it is important that the report be written in a way convenient to audiences. However, prior to writing reports, there is a need to identify an issue or a problem, which will be the focus of the report. The problem or issue is identified through readings, interactions, or prior knowledge. Now let us discuss the sources and the process of data collection, information sources, and the methods of collection. Information for research reports can be collected from two broad sources. They are primary source and secondary sources of information sources, and the methods of collection. A. Primary sources. Primary sources include unpublished information collected from a person who observed the event while it occurred. The observer in this case provides a first-hand account either of an event or of any change that takes place in that institution. Primary sources are considered as the original sources which allow researchers to ascertain the facts based on their observation and investigation of the event. Primary data can be collected through several methods. Some commonly used methods of collecting primary data include surveys, observation, and interview. Surveys are the most widespread methods of data collection in quantitative research, but they can also be used in qualitative research. Surveys are conducted through designing questionnaires which are prepared before the participants are contacted, according to Elston and Walls in 2003. Information through surveys is collected from a representation of the mass of population. This is called sampling. Samples are selected on the basis of certain conditions. The characteristics of one must be the characteristics of all in that group. The method of collecting information through surveys can be either direct or indirect. The former involves researcher directly approaching and interacting with the subjects and asking questions, means in personal interview. The latter involves either sending questionnaire through internet, mailing, or through telephonic conversation. Observation is yet another method of collecting information. Observation requires the researcher to be present in the situation and observe the occurrences. Observation not only involves collecting what is being observed but also collecting sensory information through touch, taste, smell, sounds, and so on. Two types of observation are there which can be employed for the collection of data. One is participant observation, which means that the researcher actively participates in the activities of those under study. The other is non-participant observation, which is opposite of the participant observation. Through non-participant observation, the researcher observes and listens to the activities and discourses of those under study. Observation in general is a method used to acquire precise information. Interviewing is a way of collecting primary information which entails researchers' direct interaction with the participants, asking questions and recording their responses. Through this method, the researcher asks open-ended questions free from any bias. One of the prerequisites for conducting interview is to make the respondent feel comfortable about what is being asked, maintaining a good eye contact which persuades the respondent to be fair in their responses and requires the researcher to be a good listener and skilled in writing notes. Secondary sources. Secondary sources include the published resources created by an individual or a group based on their analysis and interpretation of the primary sources. This means that any primary data reported through publication becomes a secondary source. The common examples of secondary sources are published articles, theses, books, web information, biographies, histories, and so on. Secondary sources exist in the abundance and these can best be used in providing the detail of the past, mostly in chronological order. These sources are not considered evidential but a description or illustration of the evidence. Secondary sources of data can be numeric or non-numeric. Numeric sources include the quantitative data which can be obtained from various sources such as census data, government surveys, budgets, and so on. On the other hand, non-numeric data includes published qualitative data such as media institutional reports, demographics of media executive team, journals, newspapers, literature reviews, historical accounts, commentaries, dissertations, graphics, and so on. Collecting information from secondary sources is not an easy task. During the collection of information, researcher is supposed to examine the sources of information carefully to ensure that the information is accurate. Krizan in 2008 has pointed out certain factors that need to be taken into consideration while selecting the secondary sources. These include timeliness, relevance, approach, outlet, and author. These factors determine whether the information from the sources can be utilized in the research report. Timeliness means selecting latest available information from the source. For example, there are various yearly reports of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting concerning the budget system available. However, selecting the most recently released report would be a suitable one as per the timeliness factor. But then, the researcher has to look whether the data acquired or extracted from these reports have any relevance to the current research. This entails the relevance factor. The third is approach, which involves examining whether the information is based on facts and the methodology that was used in producing this information. The researcher has to ensure that this information is free from any bias. The fourth is outlet, which involves determining whether the source of information is of repute. This involves ensuring that certain reviewing procedure was followed in publishing this information. Lastly, the reporter has to ascertain whether the person who produced the information is specialized in the field. So these are the conditions of selecting secondary data in report writing. Writing a research report. Now we will learn about the ways of writing a report. As such, there are two ways of writing a research report: informal and formal report. The informal report involves informing about the issue, analyzing the issue, and recommendations, the coping strategies. Examples of informal reports are a letter or some short documents such as sale report, institutional growth, monthly institutional activities, employees progress report, financial report, and so on. Informal reports are shorter in length, which usually summarize the day-to-day problem and issues of an institution or any other entity. Having said that, informal reports are shorter in length. It involves only 3 important steps in its preparation. Generally, these steps include introduction, discussion, and recommendations. The introduction section is presented in such a way so as to provide a context of the issue. In this section, much stress is laid on how the problem originated and what would be the effects of this problem, which subsequently defines why this problem was selected. It also includes the purpose of the report and the expected outcome of the report. Being informal, this section of the report is generally kept too narrow depending upon how intricate an issue is. Lawrence Newman in 2013 suggests that introduction part includes more than just defining the problem and the context of the report, and claims that it also includes review of the literature, hypothesis, if any, and the background assumptions also. The second section is discussion, which involves describing the design of the study and the methods used in data collection. In discussion section, the reporter tries to explain the nature of the study, the methods of data collection, sources of information, and the ethical issues, according to Newman 2014. Discussion involves a statement of what is observed and the analysis of the information collected, which is the fundamental part of any kind of research. The last step is recommendations, which are based on the reporter's interpretation of the information collected. This is the stage when the report is brought to the logical conclusion. This part, which corresponds to the last section of the report, is more than sum up of the report. It involves proposing future course of actions or policy changes. Formal reports. Unlike informal reports, formal reports are usually long, flexible documents, sometimes produced in the form of a series of volumes. These are written in response to the request made by governing bodies of certain institutions, organizations, or by government itself. A formal report consists of 3 broad sections which are further divided into various subsections. These 3 sections include preliminary section or main section and supplementary section. The preliminary section includes all the subsections of the report that comes before the writer begins the main body of the report. The preliminary part includes cover page, table of contents, list of illustration, and an abstract of the report. Cover page contains the report title and the name of the reporter. Table of contents include all the sections and subsections arranged according to the serial number of the page where a particular content is located within the main body. List of illustrations involves anything included in the appendix such as pictures, graphics, or any tabulated information and abstract of the report, which is a kind of synopsis which enlightens its readers with what the report is all about. The body is the fundamental section for any report because it includes the steps from problem selection through methodology and analysis until the reporter arrives at certain conclusion and proposes recommendations. These steps are presented in a lucid way for the readers to understand them. Also, the analysis section of the body part is broken down into numerous identifiable themes. These identifiable themes comprise various sections of the body in particular and the report in general. The third is the supplementary part. This part is indirectly connected with the body of the report. Supplementary part includes material which has relevance with the title of the report, such as glossary, appendices, and the bibliography. Glossary involves compilation of the terms frequently used in the report. Appendices include information separated from but referred to within the main body. Bibliography involves the alphabetical list of sources utilized during the writing process. The ethical issues in report writing. Ethical issues involves a complex set of rules and guidelines that guide and govern the process of research. There is a common belief among researchers that ethical issues start with the process of data collection and end with it only. However, in essence, ethical issues need to be taken into consideration from beginning till the researcher arrives at its logical conclusion. Before the commencement of any form of research at either the university level or in some other institution or profession other than academia, such as journalism, the concerned institutions should provide ethical guidelines to the researchers to ensure maintaining a good research practice. This means that the institution must enlighten its researchers with the ethical consideration in carrying out a research study. In general, research ethics can be classified into 2 main categories: ethics concerning participants and ethics in writing. Ethics concerning participants involved disclosure, informed consent, and voluntary participation. According to McAuliffe in 2009, students who learn about how to conduct research in social sciences also need to gain a clear understanding of a range of ethical issues so that they are well equipped to engage in industry-based or further academic research post-graduation. Disclosure involves providing research-related information to the participants. This is done prior to actually starting the process of data collection to determine the willingness or unwillingness of the participants of being studied. The information provided to the participants concerns the information about the researcher carrying out the research study, the purpose of the research study and the effects, if any, of the research. After disclosure, an informed consent is received from the participants. Informed consent entails participants' right to be studied or reluctance to withdraw after the disclosure. Informed consent is a form which is signed by the participant showing their interest in being studied. This is done before the participants provide any information about themselves. However, mere signing of the consent form by the participant does not put them under an obligation to participate in the study. Despite their written consent, participants' involvement in the study is always voluntary, and this entitles them to withdraw from the study at any point in time, and there must be no force exerted on them by the researcher for their participation or non-participation. Ethics in writing involves anonymity, confidentiality, analysis, and reporting. Anonymity implies that the responses of the participants mentioned in the final report stand unidentified. This is mostly true in survey methods, especially when the questionnaires are distributed among participants through mails wherein no identification marks or signs are used, which could uncover the identity of the participant. Confidentiality means keeping the identity of the participants a secret by using a pseudonym in place of the actual names of the participants. Due to this, only the researcher can relate the responses with the participants who provided them. Ethics in analysis and reporting put researcher under an obligation to reveal unexpected or negative responses. Dishonesty in the analysis of the information collected from the participants is considered unethical. An important ethical issue in analysis and reporting is plagiarism. Plagiarism entails using others' research work in one's own without proper acknowledgement of the author. Plagiarism can be resorted to in multiple ways, such as stealing ideas, concepts, theories, interpretations, and so on. Summary. In this lesson, we discussed the report writing as a method and the purpose that this kind of writing serves towards its audiences or readers. Two kinds of sources of information that are used in report writing method have been discussed, and the categorization of various information gathering methods into these two sources have been articulated. How collected information is analyzed and presented have been illustrated through informal and formal modes of writing. There are certain rules that guide the research process throughout. These rules, called ethical issues, guide how participants are approached and how the responses are presented in the final research report. This lecture at large will help and guide the readers who engage in report writing. To attempt the question in the self-evaluate quadrant, for further reading suggestions, please refer to the third quadrant. Thank you.